To this now, the issue of unwanted sexual advances at work continues to play itself out during the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. At the hearing of the High Court, Secretary Andiswa Mengo's alleged sexual harassment claim, Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge threatened her after laying a complaint against him. Now, let's unpack this. I'm joined now by Phinah Kodisang, CEO of the South African South City Soul City Institute. I beg your pardon. Hi, Phinah. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, Thabo, and thank you for having me. And it is Soul City Institute.
Yeah, Soul City Institute, indeed. Let's talk a little bit about what is coming out now, particularly as the proceedings were wrapping up this past week, particularly around the intimidation and possible tampering of evidence.
I think, Thabo, what we are seeing, is very clear. The message coming out of that hearing is very clear, right? In terms of, one, abuse of power. Powerful men know how to use the system to their advantage. And two, we see how the system continues to victimize women, right? You go through all the violations and you still have to sit in court to prove that you were violated, whereas the law should actually be reformed so that the one who is the accused is the one who proves their innocence other than the other way. And we also see that, sexual harassment is not taken seriously because the way it is put out there, it's now become your word against someone else's word. But we know that in workplaces, abuse of power is a thing. Harassment and soliciting, sexual favors in exchange for positions. It's something that is very common. It's not only here in South Africa. We've seen it, in many places. If we can even mention high-profile cases like the Michelle Sidibe's case at some point, which goes to show that this thing is out there, but we are not really taking it seriously. And when we have cases like this, you see the loopholes in the law, you see the loopholes even in the manner that we handle these cases.
Absolutely. Talking of the manner in which these cases are investigated, Mengo revealing that after receiving threats in January 2023, she handed her phone over to police for investigation. And is this something that can in itself also be followed through and included, I suppose, in the outcomes of this process?
Look, I guess she's trying everything to prove her case, right? But it's also a violation of her own POPI Act, because now her life is out there. It's being put out there for all of us to see, and to even hand your phone while the other one has not handed in their phone is an exploitation, a continued exploitation and a violation of women's rights, because what we are looking at here is women's rights that are being tarnished, that are not being respected, that, we continue to perpetuate this oppression of women through the system. And it's said that it's a legal system that continues this perpetuation.
The outcomes of this might, I suppose, set a particular precedent or a particular way in which these cases are going to be dealt with in the future, particularly considering that this is quite a high-profile individual as well also involved.
Yeah, as we have seen in the past with many other cases, including the case that I gave an example of, right? But what we need to guard against, and I'm calling out on activists to say we need to guard against the perpetual exploitation of women's rights, or even the denial of women's rights, because if men who are in power are able to use the system, against women who cannot fight on their own, and these powerful men who hold positions of power, who have the resources to fight you till the end, can then use that muscle, which not all of us will have. So we need to make sure that it is very clear from the onset that the muscle should not be the determining factor. of who wins the case, but the facts themselves, as they are presented, should be what then ultimately, wins at the end. But again, let us make sure that we don't continue to harm women. We don't continue to create an enabling environment for abuse and, for exploitation for the sake of employment, because many young women are going to face that if this is not dealt with decisively and correctively.
Phinah, appreciate your time and thanks so much for coming on. CEO of the Soul City Institute there, that is Phinah Kodisang.